Hey friends, JP Moses here. Welcome back to Real Estate Mogul and the mindset or inner game sanctuary for my Real Estate Mogul pals. I am in the midst of a riveting series of conversations with our good friend Doug Ottersberg from SuccessMindsetMastery.com. And I'm so glad to have Doug as both a friend and a mentor in the inner game arena. Doug, so far we have discussed, at least at the time I'm recording this with you, in previous lessons we've discussed feeling stuck and what to do and how to get unstuck. And we've discussed people's beliefs and why they're holding us back and the difference between core beliefs and regular beliefs and what to do about shaping those beliefs and reprogramming the things that are sabotaging us. So continuing this conversation, I wonder if we could talk about failure for a moment.
Sure.
This is something that we all have some concern over. You know, we aim for success, but there's always some fear of what if I fail at this? And I would say inevitably the road to success rather, is paved with a series of failures. That's been my experience. So let me just ask you, Doug, to share some of your thoughts on this whole failure thing.
All right. Well, that's usually when I see people. You know, they've tried something or they're experiencing something which in their perception is a failure. And they start thinking about and classifying what's going on as not only a failure, but they relate that back to themselves. And that's where the I am statement starts coming in. Not only did they just fail at what they did, they start to believe that they themselves are a failure. And what's really important about this, and you need to understand, is your subconscious mind. It's similar to a GPS in a car. And if you're wanting to go to a specific destination, you have to program in the address. And the way we do that for our own personal internal GPS, which is our subconscious mind, is we have to imprint on it. We have to put in pictures of what we want. And so what's really key here is you have to talk about what you want, and you have to start feeling and seeing these pictures of what it is that you want. And when somebody gets into a failure mode, it seems like they get stuck there, and they start focusing on everything that's wrong and the failure, and they start saying, I'm a failure. You know, for example, a lot of times I'll coach a client, and they'll say, hey, you know, I'm really good at this over here, but gosh, I started this new venture, and you know, perhaps like real estate investing or a new, you know, money-making opportunity, and they'll get into it, and they'll have what they call a failure, and they'll get all upset, you know, and they'll say, hey, that must mean I'm a failure. And I'll look at them and I'll say, are you serious? Come on. Now, is it that you're a failure, or would it be more appropriate to say that you're a person that's actually experienced a lot of successes in different areas, and yet this new area, this new thing, you just haven't mastered it yet? And they'll look at me and they say, well, yeah, I guess that's okay. And they said, you know, I want you to understand this. And then I'll say, you know, remember this, there is no failure, there's only feedback. And they say, well, what do you mean? I said, well, think of it this way. Have you ever ate a bad meal that you cooked? And a lot of times people will say, well, yeah. And I'll ask, all right, so at that point, did you just decide that meant that you were a failure as a cook, and because you're a failure, you should just stop eating? And they'll look at me and they say, well, of course not. Are you crazy? That's silly. I'm like, of course it is. And so because of that, what happened? Well, you ate whatever it was that you didn't like, and you stopped and you thought about it, and you said, okay, well, the feedback I'm getting here is I put in way too much of this specific ingredient. Next time I do that, I'll have to modify my recipe. Well, yeah, that makes sense. I can see what you're saying there, you know. And so you utilized the feedback that you got from that experience. You just changed up what you were doing, and the next time you went ahead, you did it, and you got a better result. So by remembering, oh, right now, this is just feedback, whatever result I'm getting, rather than attaching a meaning to it that I'm a failure, wouldn't it be much more productive to say, oh, well, that didn't work. Let me be like Thomas Edison, who had to go, you know, many thousands of times until he got the result he was looking for. Let me imitate that guy and say, oh, well, I didn't get the result that time. What was it that I did? What am I trying to do? Okay, what do I need to modify in order to go ahead and get the result I'm looking for? And so when you do that, it completely shifts your whole perspective and just reminds you that, yeah, I'm a person that's experienced successes in the past. And because I learned from this experience, it's neither good nor bad. It's just an experience. And I'm going to choose to learn from it, modify what I'm doing, and keep on keeping on until I reach my goal.
You know, Doug, as you're sharing this, I feel struck by something I've never considered before, but I think it might just be profound. Maybe. We'll see. You can judge. You know, so much of what we hear from those who have achieved a level of success that we desire is that one of the key ingredients is just a fierce determination to just keep going, right? And that sounds great, and it's true. There is that is a hugely important ingredient, is the ability to press through the failures, the obstacles, whatever occurs, and just keep at it. But then there's so many people who just don't seem to have the ability to do that, who just feel, and feel being the operative word there, like that's not possible for them. And I am thinking now, as I'm processing through what you just shared, that perhaps one of the biggest reasons that people don't have the inner stuff to be able to keep going is because of how they're filtering failures that they're encountering. And they're, like you said, assigning a meaning to those and then eventually absorbing it as an identity and letting it become I am failure, I equal failure, instead of seeing each failure, as you said, as feedback. I would just, I can't say that I've done like studies on people to know that that's kind of the secret missing ingredient that enables or disables people from continuing to fight the fight towards whatever success they're pursuing. But it strikes me as a pretty strong possibility. What do you think?
It's a huge part of the puzzle. Once we identify what that limiting belief is, once we start to ferret that out and bring it up where you can consciously look at it, the next phase of that whole thing is once you become aware of what that is to then have in your strategies, in your toolbox, as it were, this whole notion of mentally and consciously choosing what meaning you're going to attach or assign to a specific event that happens. Human beings we're meaning-making machines. We're really good at that. And quite often, one of the biggest challenges is, and I say this just from a purely systems approach, is the failure occurs because an incorrect meaning is assigned to the input coming in, and that's neither right or wrong. It's what it is. And so as a coach, quite often I can help people shift tremendously simply by using my trained ear to help them understand what meaning they're assigning to something. And simply by shifting what meaning they attach to something, everything can shift.
Even the word failure itself should be eradicated, I think, because it has an embedded meaning into it. It has an embedded negative meaning that that it carries in our culture. So changing it to feedback and even just viewing these feedback moments, these stumbling blocks, as part of the road leading to success that every successful person has experienced. I know, and you know both, that we look at anybody who we hold up as a success in any industry, and if you look back at what got them there, you'll see that their path too was paved with a number of quote-unquote failures that they chose the meaning for, and they chose to interpret those things as input, as feedback, as learning opportunities, whatever word you want to put to that, to give it the real meaning that it has rather than the meaning that failure automatically carries with it.
Yeah, and you're going to find, JP, and I'll be listening right now, this is a huge area that you need to start really paying attention to as you grow. Quite often, the biggest source of challenges that we have with ourselves and with other people are the meanings we attach to input that we're getting. For example, if you and I were just sitting there having a conversation, and all of a sudden I just looked away and started yawning, it's highly possible that, you might choose to attach a meaning of, oh my gosh, I'm boring Doug. Other people might choose to, attach a meaning to that of, knowing Doug, I'll bet he was up really late last night working on some exciting project. So, it's all about the meaning that we attach to words that are going to cause our beliefs, and as we know, how we feel and what actions we take or don't.
Well said. So let's make this tangible and actionable then. For anyone who is processing through these concepts and they're really resonating with this, what do you do? How do you identify the steps in transitioning from failure to feedback?
So the first step is just to really memorize that statement. There is no failure. There's only feedback. That's step one. I believe I learned that, and I like to cite source. I believe I first learned that from a man named Tony Robbins. And where he learned it from,
I might have heard of him before.
Not sure exactly where he may have learned that for, but once you start taking that on as a mindset, and when you start putting that into your own personal computer, when a situation occurs, and again, that's where you need to be on your game, and if you're not on your game, to have somebody else that's in your circle to remind you. The easiest thing for you to be looking for are times when you're upset, all right? Because most people, would you agree, JP, most people notice when they fail or when they're upset as opposed to when they're succeeding and are feeling good.
Absolutely.
And so upsets can be your trigger to stop and realize, oh, okay, what just happened? And realize, and write this down. Here's something that I tell all my clients to say. Here I grow again. So here I grow again.
I'm writing it down right now.
Awesome. So here I grow again, meaning that I can choose to learn whatever lesson is in this situation, or I can just go with my automatic reflexive response, get upset, piss off everybody in my world, including myself, and still not get the result I'm looking for. Or I can choose to mean, oh, okay, here I grow again. Here's some feedback coming in from the outside world telling me, hey, you're off target, you're off course. And then all I need to do is, all right, well, let's try something different. What would work better? And choose a different strategy and give it another go.
All right, my friend. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate you sharing from your heart and your gut on this topic of fear versus feedback. It's really powerful stuff, and I want to encourage all of our moguls to really take this to heart and begin the action steps on a consistent basis that will transform the way that you interpret the quote-unquote failures that you will encounter. It's not a matter of if, it's when, and it's how you filter those things. Thanks, my friend.
You betcha.